Good afternoon to all. It's my pleasure for me to introduce our dignitaries for this session. Mr. Raman Barua, Director of Calcutta Management Association, Mr. Sunil Kacharia, CE Banana Divisions and Chief Operating Officer of Dairy Divisions, Caventor Agro Limited, and Dr. Kakuli Bandyopadhyay, HOD, Department of Food Technology, Guru Nanak Institute of Technology. Now I request Barua sir to address the welcome session and also introduce our honorable speaker for today. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is quite a historic occasion for Calcutta Management Association because this is the second webinar that we have associated ourselves with in the past couple of days. I must convey our thanks to the Guru Nanak Institute of Technology for arranging this webinar on a very interesting subject, and for which we are indeed grateful to Mr. Sunil Kacharia, member of our executive committee, for having agreed to come and address and take this session. Calcutta Management Association, as many or most of you may be knowing, is one of the oldest management associations in the country, and we are in the sort of activities relating to organizing seminars, workshops, conferences on management issues and management practices. Before much ado, because all of you are probably very keen to hear Mr. Kacharia take on your questions, I have the pleasure and privilege of formally introducing the speaker of the day, Mr. Sunil Kacharia, who is a graduate of the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania, USA. Mr. Kacharia is part of the senior management team at Caventor Group and serves as the CEO of the fresh fruits business. He has been instrumental in creating the Caventor Assisted Farming program, wherein the company works with over 25,000 banana farmers in West Bengal to improve their livelihood. Mr. Kacharia has recently been appointed as the Chief Operating Officer of Metro Dairy Limited, Eastern India's second largest dairy company, with its portfolio of pouched milk, dahi, ice cream, and UHT milk. Mr. Kacharia has a keen interest in finance and economics and has written for a number of publications like Economic Times and TheStreet.com. As already mentioned, Mr. Kacharia is a member of the Executive Committee of Calcutta Management Association. Over to you, Shaikh.
Good evening, all. Firstly, I would like to thank Professor Saikat Mazumdar and Dr. Bandyopadhyay of GNIT, and also Mr. Raman Barua, Secretary CMA, for putting together this webinar. Secondly, I would like to thank Mr. Datta, President, and the entire Executive Committee of the CMA for coming up with such an innovative method of reaching out to the management community and making a positive impact in this time of crisis. Thirdly, and most importantly, I want to thank all the people who are here today for investing 1 hour of their valuable time in having, I hope, what will be a productive session. I am primarily involved in 3 areas of operation in Caventor Agro, and I thought that this Q&A session would touch on all 3 of them. So I'm going to take a couple of questions on bananas, 2-3 questions on dairy, and a last question or 1 or 2 questions on the FMCG sector as well. To start off with bananas, I'm looking to answer the following questions. Bananas and what impact it has on the global economy. I'm going to talk about the little bit of the work that we are doing in my company, Caventor Bananas, its strategy, its vision. Thirdly, I would like to speak about what are some of the challenges facing the banana industry. And lastly, I'll speak about the usage of GMO, that is genetically modified organisms in the banana industry. So let me dive into the questions one by one. Just give me a second, please. So a little bit of facts about bananas. It may interest everybody to know that bananas were actually the world's first cultivated fruits. and it originated right here in Southeast Asia. Historically, it has been said that it originated around the year 6000 BC, but certain researchers say that 8000 BC was actually the most likely time that it started, and that makes the fruit to be a 10,000-year-old fruit. It will also interest you to know that banana is the fourth most important agricultural crop behind wheat, rice, and corn. More than 100 billion bananas are eaten all over the world, and today there are more than 1,000 varieties available. But the most commercialized one is something called the Cavendish. In Bengal, I think we call it the Singapore. And this is what accounts for 47% of the global production. Moving ahead, if you take a look at the chart, India is by far the global champion as far as banana production is concerned. Total production right now is about 110 million tons, and India produces 32.8% of that. That means 35 million tons a year of bananas are produced by India alone. China is a distant second place at 11.4%, and then we have a couple of nations in Southeast Asia, largely Indonesia and Philippines, and a couple of nations in Central and South America, that is Costa Rica, Ecuador, Mexico, Brazil, which are largely in the export side. A banana has a very large international trade component, and more than 25 million tons are exported annually. However, India is not at all involved either in the exports or the imports. This is despite being the largest country by far. Only 0.35% of total production is actually exported out of India. If you ask me the reason for that, the dominant reason is the fact that farm size in India tends to be much smaller than globally. And because of that, even though we have good economies of scale, we are able to produce at a low cost. Our quality in terms of aesthetics and our consistency are not yet up to international standards. So, in conclusion, as far as this tie is concerned, India is very much largely a domestic play for bananas, but there is a very robust international trade in bananas as well. This chart basically compares how the banana trade is internationally with how it is in India. So in the developed world, that is the West, it is a highly consolidated business. There are 5 main banana companies, Chiquita, Dole, Sumitomo, Fives, and a 5th one, which control 80% of the world's trade in bananas. These firms are very highly integrated. That means they have the farms, they have the ships, they have the transportation, they have the containers, and they are present end to end. Another feature of the developed world is that the farm sizes are very large in size. So for example, in Philippines, you would find farms of 10,000 acres. Whereas in India, the comparable largest farms would not be more than 100, 200 acres in size. Global firms have made very high capex in logistics because they have to use ships to transport material from Philippines or a South America to their countries, Europe and America. And they've always had a historically high focus on branding. Now, if you compare this with India, it's the exact reverse in all of these formats. Indian trade in bananas is highly fragmented. That means there are millions of farmers, there are thousands of wholesalers in fruits, and there are millions of retailers. There is virtually no integration. That means that nobody in the value chain is there in 2 or 3 segments. Farmers are only farmers, wholesalers are only wholesalers, and retailers are only retailers. As I mentioned, the farm sizes are really small in India. 100 acres is about the largest that you would get, and that also only in a few states, Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh being amongst them. In West Bengal, it sounds amazing to say, but the average banana farm is 0.4 acres in size. That is it, 0.4 acres. Another distinguish between the global world and us is the fact that no sizable capex is required in logistics, because the distance between farm and the markets is very small, and which is why we have a lot of competition in India compared to the West. And our traditional focus as far as bananas has always been to sell cheap. It has been considered to be the poor man's fruit, the low cheap fruit, and that is why there has been absolutely zero focus on branding so far. However, I think over the last 3-4 years, India has changed a lot and continues to change as far as even fruits and vegetables is concerned. So if you take a look at all these factors one by one, we are seeing the entry of corporate houses into the fruits and vegetables trade. Reliance, Adani, Mahindra's, all have made a major entry into fruits and vegetables. The Adani Group has actually invested heavily into orchards of apples in Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, as well as CA chambers for storing of apples properly. And they've built up a nationwide branded business around apples. Mahindra's have built up a sizable export business for grapes out of Nasik primarily. I think they've invested more than 500 crores, and now they're giving the best of the best competition as far as grapes is concerned. As everybody is well aware, Reliance is involved in a multi-year build-out of retail infrastructure, and part of that is the F&B side of things. So they're also creating multiple F&B distribution centers, including bananas. So one thing that India is definitely seeing is the emergence of corporate houses into the F&B trade. Existing players in the fruits and vegetable business also are shedding their trading mindset. By that I mean is that they're willing to go forwards and backwards up the chain. They are investing in infrastructure and are looking to become vertically integrated players. What is very promising is the fact that companies are now being allowed to get into farming relationships. That means a company like Keventer can enter into contract farming in certain places, can enter into participatory farming in certain places, and work with what the government is really trying to actively promote called FPOs, Farmer Producer Organizations. These are groups of farmers, thousands of farmers get together and form a limited company. It is much easier having commercial arrangements and with these kind of companies rather than dealing with individual farmers. As I mentioned in the previous slide, logistics related capex is not significant in India, but building out of ripening infrastructure is taking place at a very, very fast pace. So you are going to see a huge bump up in improvement in food quality going forward. What is also very heartening to see is that the FSSAI, the Food Safety Standards Authority of India, is tightening standards relating to ripening of bananas. They have been cracking down on calcium carbide ripening, on ethyphone ripening, and they're trying to ensure that Indian consumers have access to properly ripened bananas as well. Lastly, consumers are becoming very brand conscious as well. Safety has become a major concern, traceability is a major concern, and I personally feel that over the next 4 to 5 years, you will see the transition from fruits and vegetables being an unbranded commoditized play into very much a branded product with a substantial amount of effort into branding as well. Talking a little bit about Keventer bananas, we are already India's largest supplier of bananas. In the year that just finished on 31st March, our volumes were about 39,000 tons. Today, we only get 10% of our procurement done from farms in which we have an active role. That is something that we are looking to change, and I will speak a lot about that going forward. And thirdly, we have a very strong brand focus in that we are consistently trying to emphasize the best-in-class nature of the brand and really focus on ATL and BATL activity. So Keventer, as it stands today, has 7 ripening facilities all over Bengal and parts of Eastern India. We have a ripening facility at Calcutta. We have a ripening facility at Siliguri, one at Durgapur, one at Midnapur, one at Patna, one at Ranchi, and one at Roorkee. Our products are being sold in about 72 towns and cities. We employ an FMCG infrastructure. That means we use distributors and retailers. Today we have 115 distributors, 4,500 retailers, and the current employee strength is about 128. Talking a little bit about the farming scenario in West Bengal. I just mentioned that earlier, but I'll just say it again for emphasis. West Bengal alone has 700,000 farmers involved in banana farming, whose typical farm size range from 0.4 acres to a max of 1 or 2 acres. 95% of farmers earn less than 2 lakh rupees a year. We are fortunate to work with over 25,000 of these farmers, as we need to procure more than 100 tons a day. And really, we've developed this assisted farming model to be able to improve the lives and livelihoods of these farmers. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about what we're really trying to achieve here in the assisted farming model. Firstly, as a company, it is up to us to develop a more sustainable method of dealing with farmers. So we came up with this program where we partner with various farmers at the individual level or through FPOs, and we are guaranteeing certain things to our partners. First and foremost, we are telling our partners, our farmers, that we will guarantee 100% purchase of output at market prices, along with the floor price. So the farmer knows he has a guarantee that whatever he makes will get sold at fair prices throughout the cycle. We've developed a team of 10 agronomists in Bengal who are visiting farm to farm and are helping to train farmers, support farmers throughout the entire cycle. What also happens, a lot of times is the fact that there are many subsidies available to farmers, but which are not being availed by them. This is because they simply don't have the bandwidth to go out and get these subsidies. So our teams are working with these farmers to reach out to them and help them get the subsidies which are already being offered by the state. Lastly, and very importantly, we have tied up with various other partner companies who are involved in agri-inputs, and we are trying to approach farmers jointly. So to give you an example, we have a tie-up with Mahiko, which is India's largest seed company, and they provide G9 tissue culture plantlets. We have a tie-up with Bayer, which provides plant protection chemicals. We have tie-ups with IFCO and Rallis for fertilizers. We take a lot of guidance from the BCKV for protocols for farming. We have a tie-up with Syngenta for plant yield enhancement, and with the SBI, State Bank of India, for providing loans to farmers. This slide just shows basically the kind of work that we are doing with Bayer right now. We are one of the 12 partners in India who are working on sustainable farming. So teams of Bayer and GNIT together visit farmers and provide on-the-spot education and support in plant protection, in crop protection, in fertilizer applications, drip irrigation applications, and basically do whatever is available in terms of improving their yields. As a company, we are putting in a lot of emphasis on branding. The entire emphasis is on two parts. A, we want to focus on GNIT bananas being ethylene ripened, which is the only safe method of ripening. And B, we want to focus on banana itself as a source of nutrition, as of wholesome goodness. So I'm just going to play two videos for you, one after the other. Please just bear with me while I just bring it on, which demonstrates these two aspects of what we're trying to achieve. And now I'm playing the second video, which focuses on the wholesome goodness part of things.
every day a dash of wholesome goodness with Keventer bananas.
Just to give you a sense of how our products are distributed, 90% of bananas sold today actually are sold through wet markets. So we have a distribution network and architecture of distributors who supply to retailers in local markets, and these are sold then to consumers. 90% of our products actually continue to be sold under this mechanism. We are also present in modern trade, so you will find our products in Spencer's or in More or in Big Bazaar. And recently we've added 2 new methods of distribution. Some of you might have seen the Keventer pushcarts in Calcutta. We all used to having seen pushcarts for selling of ice cream, but Keventer has been able to extend this concept for bananas, and I'm glad to report that it's done very well in the 6 months that we've introduced it. There are more than 20 carts operating in the city of Calcutta, and by and large, customers are delighted with it. Very recently, we have also added our products on Zomato Market. You know, in this time of crisis, Zomato Market has become a very interesting method of delivering groceries to customers. And more consumers are actually using this platform to cater to their daily needs. So the Keventer store now has bananas, and this product, the Zomato Market, is able to deliver even 10 pieces on an everyday basis. So basically reach consumers however possible. Old methods, new methods, whatever is possible to ensure that customers have the choice of Keventer bananas every day. FY 13-14 is when the company really made a commitment to the banana business. Earlier, we were involved in 150 fruits and vegetables. In FY 13-14, we got rid of 149 of them, and we said, let's focus only on bananas. And again, in the last 6 years, the growth of the company has been phenomenal. We've been growing at about 45-46% CAGR, and things are looking up to the level that we should reach 100,000 tons by FY 2025. Yeah. So Keventer bananas, the way we see it, our vision by the year 2025 is to remain India's largest supplier of bananas. We will have a dominant presence not only in Eastern India, but we'll complete a build out of Northern India as well, and have a volume of more than 100,000 tons per year by 2025. Using the benefits of the Keventer Assisted Farming Program, we would like to see 25% of our total volume coming from farms where Keventer plays an active role. And we will continue to support advertising, ATL, BTL both, to highlight the best-in-class nature of the brand and make the Keventer name as generic for bananas as Domino's or is for pizza or Subway's is for sandwiches. So we really see Keventer's growing from 7 ripening centers to 16 by 2025, 72 towns to 200, from 115 distributors to 400, 4,500 retailers to 20,000, and 128 employees to 500. So that's all about Keventer bananas. Now, I'm bringing about a quote which was actually written in the year 2008, and it deals with some of the problems plaguing the banana industry. Now, these problems are not Indian, they are more global. But just to give you a sense of some of the problems and challenges which exist. I'm just going to read the quote out. Although bananas may only look like a fruit, they represent a wide variety of environmental, economic, social, and political problems. The banana trade symbolizes economic imperialism, injustices in the global trade market, and the globalization of the agricultural economy. Bananas are also number 4 on the list of staple crops in the world and one of the biggest profit makers in supermarkets. making them critical for economic and global food security. As one of the first tropical fruits to be exported, bananas were a cheap way to bring the tropics to North America and Europe. Bananas have become such a common, inexpensive grocery item that we often forget where they came from and how they got here. Now, as I said earlier, this quote is from 2008. And if we have this debate, you will find that globally, these problems still persist. The problem is that the producing countries, Philippines, Indonesia, Honduras, Costa Rica, Ecuador, still only get about 14 to 15% of the eventual selling price of a banana. A large part of the value is being captured by the supermarkets which are selling the bananas in the Western world, as well as the companies involved in branding, selling, distribution. So this is a debate and discussion which is probably going to carry forward for a long, long time. And one can only hope that the retail prices of bananas go up to an extent where at least some of these are mitigated. Moving ahead, I received a question on the use of GMO, genetically modified organisms, in the banana industry. So let me tell you a little bit about the Cavendish banana, which is actually seedless. And the way the global banana industry uses tissue culture plantlets as the main way of replanting fresh crops. So basically, tissue culture plantlets are clones. And this has meant that over the years, there has been a lack of genetic diversity and has made the banana plant very susceptible to disease. So there is a particular fungus out there called TR4 or Fusarium wilt, which has actually attacked a large number of plantations globally and it is completely resistant to traditional methods of defense. Let me add here that so far India has not been affected by this problem, but eventually I fear that at some point Indian plantations also will come under attack. Now the industry itself is in a vulnerable situation and is exploring CRISPR-based solutions to this problem. As you guys are aware, CRISPR is a gene editing tool and a number of people are trying CRISPR-based solutions to find variants which will be resistant to TR4. No variety has yet been developed which is resistant to TR4 and at the same time matches the taste profiles and commercial considerations. But various research universities around the world are looking for solutions. It also has to be kept in mind that gene editing solutions like CRISPR may be allowed to utilize other banana variety genes, and this will be palatable to consumers. But it is doubtful that consumers will allow genes from other organisms to be used inside bananas at all. This will be particularly stringently be used by Europe as well, most importantly, and America to a smaller extent, sorry. So that concludes the banana part of the presentation. I'm now going to answer a couple of questions about the dairy industry in India. First, what are the major problems and challenges facing the Indian dairy industry? And secondly, what are some of the emerging trends and innovations in the dairy industry? Just some key statistics to give you a sense of where the sector is today. India happens to be the largest milk producer globally. We produce 176 million tons of milk, and the market value of that milk is about $105 billion. 92% of our milk is actually produced in rural areas, and 40% of that is consumed at source, leaving a marketable surplus of about 60%. The industry is organized only to the extent of 29%, out of which 19% is from private players. When you move over to the consumption side, Indian consumption remains very low at about 350 to 400 grams per person per day. We all hope that it will grow rapidly with economic progress. And milk prices actually have grown faster than the CPI, largely because of faster rise of input prices. Moving ahead to some of the challenges faced by the sector. Most of these challenges are actually faced on the dairy farming side. I've highlighted 4 major challenges: low milk quality and adulteration, poor animal health, poor farm economics, and the high cost / low quality of feed. Talking about milk quality, what has to be understood is that milk is a perfect food, not only for human beings or animals, it is also a perfect food for bacteria. So bacteria grows tremendously fast in milk, which is why once milking happens, it is critical that milk is chilled down to 4 degrees temperature as soon as possible. But in India, the supply chain of milk is exceptionally large. You have a villager who milks it, gives it to an agent in the village, who takes it to a village level collection center, who takes it to a bulk milk chilling center, and who finally takes it to the dairy. So because of this long chain, you do not have temperature control to the level at which it takes place in the West. This not only decreases quality, it increases cost as well. Secondly, I'm sure everybody has read newspaper reports saying that 60% of Indian milk is adulterated, 70% is adulterated. Definitely the problem does exist. Variety of government agencies, including FSSAI, do a lot of programs, do a lot of work. They act very stringently against defaulters and people who are crooked. But still, given the size and scale of our country, adulteration remains an issue which we have to grapple with on a continuous basis. Coming to the second major challenge facing the sector, if you remember, I said that 92% of milk production is on the rural side. So rural side has the issue that there is an absolute lack of medical facilities and veterinarians. And secondly, what happens also is that the farmers, being marginal, do not pay enough emphasis to hygiene conditions while keeping the animals. Coming to the third point, poor farm economics. More than 75% of Indian farmers only keep 2 to 5 animals. And dairy farming is essentially a supplementary form of income for them. So agriculture is the primary basis of income, and they use the excess from the agriculture to feed the animals. Which is why the output in India is only 2 to 10 liters a day per animal as compared to 20 plus achieved in the West. Also another factor which actually leads, we're talking about now poor farm economics. It is exceptionally expensive to set up a mid-sized farm catering to about 50 or 100 animals in India. It would cost about 1 crore rupees, which is absolutely unremunerative for farmers if they have to invest that kind of money. And given that wholesale milk prices are 25 rupees a liter, it makes absolutely no economic sense at all. So that is one of the reasons why you don't have scaled businesses in farming at all. Moving to the last point, high cost, low quality of feed. In India, we have approximately 125 million milch animals. Now, by milch animals, you mean animals which are capable of giving milk at that point in time. This is out of a total livestock of 540 million animals. Now, this percentage is really low compared to any other country because they are able to much more efficiently move non-milch animals into slaughterhouses and ensure that feed is not used for non-productive, non-milk usage. Apart from that, India is also suffering from seeing grazing areas reduced due to urbanization and industrialization. Our fodder production is completely dependent on good monsoons. And as I mentioned, the farm economics being poor, farmers are unable to provide supplements, mineral supplements, which are critical for animal health. All this has meant that over the years, the Indian average of milk per lactation has been stuck at around 900 kgs per lactation only, as compared to Western averages of 5,000 to 8,000 liters achieved there. Moving ahead, the situation is not completely gloomy. What we are seeing is there has been a massive increase in the demand of milk and milk products coming in India. If you see the chart in front of you, it highlights what are the components of food consumed by various players in the Indian consumption pyramid. So what is startling in this chart is the fact that when a consumer moves from the bottom to the middle, his consumption of milk and milk products actually double. So if we go through the great growth rates that we're talking about in India, you are going to see an absolute mushrooming of milk and milk products going forward. And this is going to remain a very interesting category, at least from the product side of view, for a very, very long time. Another chart which really talks about how various milk products are expected to grow in the future. You have the old products, the traditional products like pouch milk, ghee, cream whitener, which is growing at about 10 to 12% per annum. And then you have the higher value-added products like the ice cream, the UHT, the milkshakes, cheese, which are all showing 20% growth rates. So the interesting part about this industry is that supply is hugely challenging, has a number of things that it has to do to improve, but the demand story is exceptionally interesting and exciting. Just as a wrap up, if we compare the Indian dairy industry with in the past and what will become in the future, we can say that in the past, dairy was dominantly into liquid milk. The margins were exceptionally low. There was very limited marketing done on consumers. The products were standardized. Pricing was regulated. And it was largely logistics driven. In the future, we are going to see milk becoming, or dairy products becoming, a value-added business, improving margins, improved brands, packaging, segmentation. These products will now target different segment groups: infants, growing children, mothers. And you'll have a lot of new differentiated products such as low sugar, probiotics. You'll have packaging innovations like UHT. You'll have free market, competitive pricing, and longer shelf life products, again, like butter, cheese, UHT milk, etc. So the key determinants of success are going to move from sourcing linkages and manufacturing efficiency into branding, into cold chain capabilities, into distribution and product development. So that was all on the dairy side of things. Now on the FMCG side, really I've only got one issue to discuss here today. I think in this current climate of gloom and doom, it is important to find some positive features as well. And I recently came about a report which deals with how China is dealing with its post-lockdown scenario. So it seems that, once the lockdown in China has been slowly lifted, consumers are coming back at a much faster rate than was previously thought possible. And safety and health have become the top of mind aspects when it comes to their shopping needs. There's a much greater focus on immunity, on freshness, on environmental safety, and the loyalty towards existing brands. Learning from even history, if you look back at recent history, in 2003, we had the SARS episode in China. There again, sales had taken a massive hit during the 2 or 3 months that the pandemic was in place. But after that, sales rebounded quite sharply and remained stable after that. And the report suggests that China is going to see a similar thing happening this time around, as there is a lot of pent-up buying and shopping desire remaining in the system. In fact, they're going so far out as to predict that Chinese buying and spending on beauty, on clothing, jewelry, alcohol is actually expected to rebound sharply. So we in India should not feel dejected that the world has come to an end, the economy has come to an end. Sure, there are setbacks and it will take a lot of time to normalize, but spending will also bounce back faster than we think. However, one thing is also clear, as a distribution strategy, e-commerce is making massive headway compared to traditional retail. The sales of retail in China anyway were largely skewed or moving much faster in the e-commerce direction, but post-COVID-19, they seem to have accelerated even further. What is also surprising is that post-COVID-19, e-commerce usage has shot up amongst consumers above the age of 30 and also those in tier 3 cities of China. So this is leading to a massive increase again in the amount of e-commerce activity going through. What is also very interesting is the fact that grocery shopping has moved entirely online. As shops, hypermarkets were closed for a long period of time, consumers were forced to order their food requirements online, and hypermarkets like Sun Art and Carrefour are reporting massive increases in sales, 400%, 600%, 200% going over during the last 3 months. Now, this is another chart which just proves or says that you are going to have a much accelerated growth in e-commerce in the next 3 to 4 years. And to me, the same opportunity exists in India as well. My final slide actually compares where we are in India today in terms of digital penetration with that of China. So you see that India has 41% digital penetration. Our online retail sales value is about 40 billion, and 3% of total retail sales is online. By comparison, in China is 59% of digital penetration, $1.5 trillion in retail value, and 25% online retail. So in India too, e-commerce will gain relative to traditional retail at a much more accelerated pace post-lockdown. Companies must adapt to this new reality by making a move into D2C, direct to consumer, and exploring whatever e-commerce options are available post-lockdown. There will also be a larger push into digital payments, both from the government side as well as from consumer side, as consumers will not want to handle cash to the same level that they used to before. So this is a small snapshot of what is taking place in China, and I think which should give us heart that whenever we emerge from our own lockdown, things will probably not be as gloomy as we think, and our recovery will be equally fast. We are as dynamic as that country, and I see no reason why we should have an extended slowdown as well. From my side, that concludes the first part of the presentation. Thank you for taking the time, and I can try to answer some questions if you guys have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a valuable speech. I have a question, sir, actually. That you are doing the banana sector in a organized manner. Hello,
Yeah.
Can you hear me, sir? Yes. Banana sector you are trying to them in an organized form to an unorganized form to an organized form. So in case of dairy, how to go from the unorganized to the organized way, because there are lots of farmers and they are a small scale.
For dairy sector, I think it will happen on its own. The benefits of organized sector in terms of food safety are tremendous. As I mentioned during the presentation, milk is a highly nutritious food, not only for us, but for bacteria as well. So if you don't maintain the cold chain, if you don't maintain the hygiene standards, it will eventually come back to cause you a lot of health problems. Now, the unorganized sector simply does not have the technology, does not have the learning to provide that level of food safety. It makes, to me as an industry person, it makes no sense that people should be buying raw milk out of cans. It is literally insane. It makes no sense at all. It is highly dangerous, and we've had this entire pandemic which proves what is that you have to be exceptionally careful in how you deal with microorganisms. And buying milk from the unorganized sector, I think, is just a replication of that.
Yes, actually. Sir, we have a question that how FMCG sector treat post-lockdown scenario?
So as I'm saying, what I think the FMCG sector, what companies are going to do is that they're going to aggressively move much more direct to consumer. That means, say, if I'm a FMCG company today, I am not going to only rely on my traditional channels of distributors and retailers. I will want to access customers directly, either through my own website or through partner websites like an Amazon or a Swiggy or a Zomato. The idea will be to reach customers quickly and directly.
We need to, the e-platform will be very essential then.
Very essential, and the move will be much faster and stronger than we can anticipate.
We have another question, sir. Consumer behavior. You said earlier that China has, after lockdown situation, the total consumer behavior has changed. So how to study? The student Rajdeep Chakraborty want to know how to study.
I think that's $1 billion question. We have to remember there is no one consumer. There are hundreds of different types of consumers. All have their own requirements. All see the market or the product in their own lens. So, as a marketeer or as a manufacturer, you have to fully understand who you are catering to, what product has what attributes, and move accordingly. I don't think there is any answer in terms of studying consumer behavior.
There is no particular method. There are lots of methods.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to understand where you are placed in the hierarchy of products in terms of how essential it is, how your pricing is, what the substitutes are, and then gauge consumer behavior through those lenses. But that's a very interesting and very complex field. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Sir, we have a question that fear and possibilities in the FMCG sector and job prospects after this post-COVID scenario.
I personally think that the job prospects will be back in a strong manner. It will be helpful if the new era of students are also engaged in technology as well. I think because that will be what will drive a lot of the consumption going forward. So you should have a better understanding of how commerce takes place on the web. You should understand how Amazon works, how Zomato works, how Swiggy works. I think those skills will bring about, will have value in the marketplace, because these are the things that consumers, this is the thing that companies have to deal with now. They are very used to the traditional method of FMCG, of having distributors and warehouses and retailers, but they don't have that much of experience in-house in handling social media or in handling e-commerce media to the same extent. So I think that will be a new skill which students should definitely look to acquire.
Yes, sir. I agree with you, sir. And last question, sir. What are the response when Caventar collaborated with Zomato in this situation?
It's been off the charts. I cannot tell you that how fast the consumers have responded, and we are seeing traction for so many products which we never thought would sell on the Zomato platform. But today, even bananas, people are ordering 10 bananas on Zomato. Of course, it might be driven by lockdown and lack of channels to buy it. But the fact is, people are willing to pay delivery charges to buy bananas online. People are experimenting with products which they otherwise would not have. Older customers are coming on board. People who would not have traditionally used their smartphones to purchase things, who would have traditionally sent their staff out to purchase, are using the smartphones and making that first purchase. And this will definitely emerge into repeat behavior. So I am personally at least very well invested in exploring the e-commerce options going forward. I think that will be a major part of where future growth will come from.
The entire scenario of marketing is going to change after this post-COVID session.
Yes, absolutely it will. And what will also happen is, because if the lockdown extends for say 3 months, the health of the general trade sector also would have declined. So they will have a little bit of a challenge in being able to restart operations with the same vigor. And companies now dealing with consumers directly for the first time will also use that power. I know, on the e-commerce platform, I have a much better understanding of my consumers, what they're looking for, what pricing matters, what discounts matter, what attributes matter. So those are also game changers as far as the sector is concerned.
Okay, so thank you, sir, for your great time. And now I would like to invite, yes, ma'am, you are here.
Sholkot?
Yes.
Sholkot, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so I think no other questions from students' side. Any more questions? So they are happy, I think. So on behalf of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology, I must say thank you very much. I am very much grateful to Calcutta Management Association also for helping us to organize this wonderful interactive seminar in this web portal. Obviously, Mr. Kajaria, we will get help from you in future also. So if you have time, I think you are giving so much time for us, and in future we are also very much hopeful that you will visit our college, and you are most welcome in that, because we need some face-to-face interaction where we will get or where we can share our ideas, and you can get a visit of our department. So, students, I think we are all thankful to Mr. Sunil Kajaria, Mr. Raman Barua for also presenting here, and obviously the GNIT for organizing this workshop in this My Perfectist portal. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, from my side, I can only thank you people. I think it's been a great experience and a great pleasure to have this seminar. And I want to really thank you, Professor Mazumdar, and of course, Mr. Barua, for a very well organized event. Thank you so much.
So there is one last question. Rajdeep Chakraborty, I think he asked one question. How can we make common people understand about food safety, as the 90% people only care about price?
Trust me, I've been grappling with this issue for the last 7 years in the banana trade, because you can imagine 90% of the unorganized sector in bananas sells you a carbide ripened banana, which is exceptionally harmful. It is carcinogenic, but a large variety of consumers, even rich ones, will choose a 3 rupee banana over a 4 rupee banana, which is branded and which is ethylene ripened.
That's true.
So this is a challenge. I think as we mature as a people, as we become more educated, as we become wealthier, we will give more importance to our own health, our own safety, and it comes from maturity, nothing else. Today, if you consume an unsafe product, you might save 1 rupee here and there, and then you'll pay back lakhs of rupees to the medical institute when you have to be cured of whatever hardship or disease that you catch. So to me, it's an absolutely no-brainer. Food safety is by far the single most important aspect of this industry, and I think it will drive the change in consumer behavior here as well over the next 5 years.
Thank you.